As a home coffee roaster, it's important to try different roasting profiles. Change it up, trying different methods, experimenting with different roast levels. And today that's what I'm going to be doing here at the Virtual Coffee Lab. So stick around. All right, thanks for joining me today and welcome to the Virtual Coffee Lab. I'm going to be roasting a really light roast on my drum roaster. This is an Ethiopian Kettle Whoosh Whoosh limited oxygen coffee that is from the Captain's Coffee. I'll have a link down in the description. You can check that out. Tasting notes are sweet, juicy, and fruity coffee, blackberry, elderberry, grape soda, and florals. This is a natural coffee and it's also a semi-anaerobic. So that means it's had some time in a sealed tank for fermentation with water in it. And we're going to see what we can do with this coffee. So my goal is to charge this at 367 degrees, and that is where we're at right now. So we're going to get started with charging this coffee, and then we'll talk about the roast profile. Charge. All right. All right, I've got my drum set. Right now my gas is set on low, and I'm going to let this kind of come down a little bit. My goal is for about a 5-minute dry time, and then about a 3-minute and 45-second middle phase, and then about a 1-minute and 15-second for development. So I'm going to have a short development because I want to have the balance of this cup be towards acidity and not as much of well-developed coffee. So I'm going to have a shorter development time. We're going to be talking more about that as we roast here. All right, up goes the gas. And I'm not going to go all the way up 100% on this gas. Right now, I am probably at about 60% gas. And I'm going to wait and see what happens. I'm going to watch my turning point, which is going to happen here in just a second. And this is going to give me a good indication on where I'm at in my launch towards dry end. So we have momentum in the roast when we have a drum, a roaster that is hot, pre-warming our roasters, whether you're roasting on a Behmor or whether you're roasting on a roaster like this. So I'm in 1 minute and 21 seconds at 270 degrees, and I've got plenty of momentum to push me up towards a 5-minute dry. But what I'm going to do is I'm not going to just give it all the gas I have. I'm going to be patient, and I am going to watch my countdown on Artisan. Right now it's 6:29, 5:57, 5:36. I'm watching this countdown as my rate of rise increases. My rate of rise increases from 16, 16.8, and now I'm very close to a 5-minute dry. I'm probably going to end up around a 4:45 dry time, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So that's definitely in the range of where I want to be. This rate of rise is going to actually kind of flatten out a little bit, and I'm okay with that. So we'll probably be close to 4:45 for our dry time. So my goal in this roast, in order to get a light roast, I cannot overheat the drum. I've got to be very careful not to apply too much heat in the very beginning, because then I won't be able to slow my roast down. I'm already at 4.5 minute dry time is what Artisan is showing, and I'm not sure if that's exactly right. Artisan is usually pretty close, but I've got lower temperatures right now. I've got a lower charge, and I have a lower gas setting right now. So I'm a little surprised that I've got that 4:25, 4.5 minute mark, but we're gonna wait and see. So I'm at 21.9 on my rate of rise, and I'm going to take a look at the bean color here. So we went from this yellow to now this kind of we went from like a dark green, and it's now starting to turn a little bit of yellow. You can see that. 4 minutes and 29 seconds is still the estimated dry time, and we're about 30 seconds from that. So I think Artisan may be showing it a little early, maybe not. Still got green. So what I do is I watch my color very carefully, because I don't want to have any green left in the bean when I call dry. So for me, I'm looking for full yellow, and then I call dry. That's just a way for me to be consistent. You need to be consistent when you call dry, and that will be whatever you say that it is, as long as it's the same each time. So if it's just a little bit of green, that's okay. All right, I've got just a little bit of yellow. I'm sorry, a little bit of green, and we are calling that dry. It was probably closer to 4:45. I'm not going to back my gas down too much, but I'm going to start with that right now, and I'm going to watch what happens in Artisan. So one of the things that I'm very careful about is making sure that I don't have a crash where I have a sudden, huge, long drop in my rate of rise, and I don't have a long, flat spot in my rate of rise, and I don't have like an increasing rate of rise as I'm in this phase. I am going to have some humps and bumps. I know that from experience. A little bit smaller of an adjustment here to work our way down. And I'm also using my exhaust temperature just to kind of know that I'm in control. I've got a 397.8.7 right now on my exhaust temperature. And my goal is to have a drop temperature of about 395 degrees. I'm going to go down just a little bit more. And we'll let that come down, because I need to draw out my first crack. I need to draw out my middle phase time. So just a small adjustment makes a big difference here on this roaster. That will come out of that decline that you see, but that's going to give me more time. That little drop is going to give me more time in this phase, and that's exactly what I need, is a little bit more time. So we're looking at if that was a 5 minute, 6, 7, 8:45 is ultimately where I want to be on my first crack time. We'll see what happens with that. So by doing this, by stretching out my Maillard or my middle phase, I'm not going to have some really harsh acidity. I'm going to have a little more muted, juicy, some call it jammy kind of fruitiness, and I'm really excited. That's exactly what I'm after. So we got a declining rate of rise. By the time first crack hits, I'm hoping to be under 10. Another little gas adjustment, just a little bit more. And we're starting to smoke, so that tells me that we're getting close to first crack. We've definitely got a lot of the moisture that's coming off, and we're just starting to crack. And I'm going to call first crack. First crack came earlier than I wanted, came earlier than I thought. That's okay. All right, so now I'm not going to adjust my air. I'm leaving my air alone. It's a medium draw air through the entire roast, but I definitely need to get my rate of rise down. And we're going to let this almost coast for the rest of the roast. I want to get that rate of rise down to about 5 if I can. I'm watching my temperature here and my time in development. This coffee definitely came to first crack a little earlier than I had planned. We'll see what that comes out to here in my roasting percentage. I'm going to turn on the fan. Cooling fan is turned on. 391. The most important thing that I'm paying attention to, other than my rate of rise going down, is my drop temperature of 395 degrees. And we're getting really close on that. Let me grab my spoon. 393. And we're going to start to, oh yeah. $390. I'm going to drop it at 394. There we go. Wow. Okay. That roast definitely went quicker than I thought it was going to happen, and I did not have a lot of heat applied to this roast. So we have a dry process coffee that in some ways behaves as though it's already partially roasted. It tends to take the heat and just run with it. So that's one factor that we had going here, and I kind of knew that. That's why I started with my lower charge temperature of 367 degrees. The interesting part of all this is even with that lower charge temperature, I still had, you know, a pretty quick turning point. But I wouldn't say that this roast was out of control, not at all. This works in perfectly with kind of a typical roast that I have, a typical roast profile, except the temperatures are lower. So that's really interesting. Bean color-wise, we've got some inconsistency. Looks like a lighter side of medium. Definitely not super light in color. Okay, this roast scooted along quicker than I had planned. It had a dry time of 4:48, a Maillard phase of 3 minutes, and then a development time of 1 minute and 36 seconds. Total roast time is 9 minutes, 24 seconds. So this roast went about 30 seconds faster than I wanted it to. I wanted to have probably that 30 seconds should have been in my middle phase, and it wasn't. As far as the roast color goes, I'm pretty happy with the roast color. This looks better when I hold it like this, and I hold it in my hand and I look at the roast color. It looks better and closer to what I wanted than if I were to hold this up using like my phone camera. The color on the iPhone up close isn't as good, too much contrast. But this is definitely towards the lighter side. I'm going to weigh this right now. All right, so we started off with a pound. $400 grams. Let's go to ounces. So we got 14.12 divided by 16, and that's 0.8825. So that's about 12% on my development, or I'm sorry, 12% on my total weight loss. It smells really good. This is the first time that I've tried to get a really light roast with, you know, an Ethiopian dry whoosh whoosh. So, you know, all in all, for first attempts, I think it's pretty good. My roast profile goals were definitely off. If I would have got my temperature down right after dry end, instead of it kind of continuing on that easy angle downward, if I would have backed off on the gas just a little bit sooner, then I would have had a longer Maillard, a longer middle phase. And that is the challenge that most coffee roasters have when they're roasting a coffee, especially a coffee that's not going really dark. They're trying to be delicate with the total roast. They're trying not to be real aggressive because they're trying to go for origin flavors and not have too much development. And it's very difficult if you have too much energy going into the roast to slow it down quick enough, especially like on a drum roaster. Okay, if you've made it this far into the video, thank you very much. Hit that like button now so YouTube will send the message to other home coffee roasters that this is a channel and a video worth checking out. So please hit the like button. Also, if you haven't subscribed, that really encourages me to produce more videos. Hit the subscribe button. And if you want to be the first to know when my videos come out, always hit that notification bell. All right, before I taste the coffee, I want to talk about my experience grinding and brewing the coffee. So I'm using the Kalita. It's a glass Kalita with a white bleached filter, completely rinsed, and I'm doing like a 16 water to 1 part coffee ratio. When I ground the beans, I got a real fruit explosion, berries. I could just very distinctly smell all kinds of berry notes coming out. Blackberry, raspberry, strawberry, blueberry. I mean, it was just a shower of berry hitting my nose, and it was really awesome. And I did get a little bit of floral in that and a little bit of a spice kind of a smell in the aroma of the grounds. And then as I started to wet the coffee, I started to get a little bit of a woody kind of a note along with some cinnamon. And then I really wasn't getting a lot of fruit in the aroma while I was brewing the coffee. By the way, I used the same method that my son-in-law Jeremy used during the brouhaha competition that he won this last year. You can check that video out up here. And that was the George Howell method with the Kalita. And so I know that I did a decent job brewing the coffee. So now we go in for the taste and see what's happened. I get a flood of juice hit the tongue. It's just, you can't avoid it. It's definitely a juicy coffee. A little bit of a pucker, so there's a little bit of a juicy tartness, but not an overpowering tartness. There is kind of maybe a raspberry note that's in that juice, but I'm not getting a lot of berry in this coffee at all. I am getting kind of a tea-like, some tea-like flavor, and very light and delicate coffee. It's a light-bodied coffee. I'm getting a little bit of sweetness. It is just a really delicate coffee. It's definitely not under-roasted, so this is not an underdeveloped coffee. This is definitely not an underdeveloped coffee, but it is, I don't know if this is how you would describe a Nordic coffee or not. It is very light. I would probably like it maybe a little darker than this. So if it was 11.75%, I might like to try like 12.5% moisture loss. So that would put that maybe somewhere around 396 degrees on my drum roaster. I'd also like to try to extend that middle phase to try to get a little more flavor development to bring out a little bit more of that berry that this coffee has the potential to produce. So I think I've learned some lessons from this, and that is that trying to go extremely light doesn't automatically mean you're going to get a fruit bomb. That's number one. Number two is that heat management is really important, and for me, having a longer middle phase definitely, I think, would change this coffee, and that's a really important lesson. And I've known that lesson, but it's just this is a reminder of how that I really need to pay attention and really try to watch that time in that middle phase and do whatever I can to get that rate of rise down if I can. And yeah, so those are my really important lessons there. And I think sometimes it takes more than one experiment with a coffee to maybe learn more about that coffee than you would have if you would just use the same profile you've always used. And that's what I said in the very beginning. It's important for us to step out of our comfort zone of using the same profiles over and over, try something different, do a little experimenting, and try to learn from those experiences. And that's what I did today. So I'm very happy with the whole experience. I think I can do better with this coffee. It is definitely enjoyable. It's not bad coffee at all, but it's not a great cup. Not really, I would think this coffee can get to, that I can get it to, and I'm going to try again on this. But yeah, those are some things I learned from this roasting experience. Have you had an experience like this? Have you experimented with any of your coffees, trying different roast profiles, stumbled upon some really great things that happened, and maybe learned some lessons from some things that weren't so great? Share those in the comments. I would love to be able to read those. And I appreciate you guys watching this video. Thank you for supporting this channel. And I hope you guys have a great week roasting. We'll see you next time. Take care.